You've watched the show, played the games, read the books, but have you ever stopped to ask who's really pulling the strings? The Witcher saga is often framed as Geralt of Rivia's journey, his sword, his code, his quest to protect Ciri from the forces that hunt her. Yennefer of Vengerberg, meanwhile, is reduced to a footnote, Geralt's fiery lover, a powerful sorceress, a supporting player in the grand drama of destiny. But that's the lie we've all bought into. Yennefer isn't just along for the ride, she's the architect. Quiet, calculating, and unapologetic, whose subtle, unacknowledged choices have reshaped the saga's most critical turns. From Ciri's survival to the fall of empires, from Geralt's moral compass to the very fabric of destiny itself, Yennefer's influence weaves through the story like an invisible thread. Pull back the curtain, and you'll see The Witcher's epic isn't just Geralt's tale. It's Yennefer's. She just never asked for the credit. Let's start with the moment that changed everything, Ciri's escape from Cintra. When Nilfgaard's army sacked the capital, when Calanthe died on the battlefield, when Ciri fled into the woods as an orphan fugitive, the world saw a girl adrift, clinging to Geralt's law of surprise as her only hope. But what they didn't see was Yennefer, already moving. Long before Geralt set foot in Cintra, Yennefer had been watching, using her connections in the Brotherhood of Sorcerers to track Nilfgaard's movements, using her magic to plant false trails, using her wit to manipulate nobles into sheltering Ciri's allies. When Ciri was cornered by Nilfgaardian soldiers in the Brokilon forest, it wasn't luck that saved her. It was Yennefer, who'd secretly bribed the Dryads to protect the girl, who'd left a vial of invisibility potion in Ciri's satchel, hidden in a doll Calanthe had given her, who'd whispered a spell into the wind that confused the soldiers long enough for Ciri to run. Geralt got the glory for finding her, but Yennefer had already cleared the path. That's her MO? Work in the shadows, fix the pieces, and let others take the stage. Then there's her influence on Geralt, far deeper than romance. Geralt's code, do not kill humans, is often hailed as his defining trait, but it was Yennefer who taught him to question it. Remember when Geralt was hired to kill a group of elves who'd been raiding human villages? He was ready to fulfill the contract, to see the elves as monsters, until Yennefer stopped him. You call yourself a witcher, but you're just a tool, she said, her voice sharp with disdain. Look beyond the coins. Those elves are refugees. Nilfgaard burned their homes, killed their families. You want to be a hero? Defend the ones no one else will, not the ones who pay you. Geralt hesitated, then refused the contract. That moment wasn't just a fight between lovers. It was a shift in Geralt's soul, one that would lead him to protect Ciri not because of a law of surprise, but because it was right. Yennefer didn't just love Geralt. She challenged him. She made him better. And in doing so, she changed the course of his journey from a lone monster hunter to a father, a protector, a symbol of hope. But her greatest impact, by far, is on Ciri. The world sees Ciri as Geralt's ward, as the child of destiny, as a weapon to be wielded or destroyed. Yennefer sees her as a daughter, and that love fierce, unyielding, and unbreakable has shaped Ciri into the force she becomes. When Ciri's powers first manifested, wild and untamed, Geralt wanted to hide her, to keep her safe from the world. Yennefer disagreed. She's not a secret to be buried, she told him. She's a sorceress in the making. I'll teach her to control her gifts, to use them wisely. I'll give her the one thing you can't, a home. And she did. At Kaer Morhen, Yennefer trained Ciri not just in magic, but in courage, in wit, in resilience. She taught her to channel her fear into power, to trust her instincts, to never let anyone define her worth. When Ciri was tempted by the Wild Hunt, when she wanted to give in to the darkness that threatened to consume her, it was Yennefer's voice she heard. You are more than your destiny. You are Ciri, daughter of Calanthe, student of mine, loved by us all. Fight for that. Ciri didn't just survive because of her powers. She survived because of Yennefer, because Yennefer gave her the strength to believe in herself. Let's talk about the battles, the ones where Yennefer's hand was invisible, but her influence was everywhere. Take the Battle of Kaer Morhen, when the Wild Hunt attacked the Witcher's Keep. Geralt led the charge with his sword. Vesemir fought to protect Ciri, but it was Yennefer who turned the tide. She wove a shield of fire around the keep, holding back the Hunt's forces long enough for the Witchers to regroup. She summoned a storm that struck down the Hunt's leaders, sowing chaos in their ranks. She used her magic to heal the wounded, to strengthen the Witcher's blades, to give them the edge they needed to win. And when the battle was over, when the Hunt retreated, when everyone was celebrating, Yennefer was alone in the tower, tending to Ciri's injuries, never once mentioning her role in the victory. That's the beauty of Yennefer's influence. It's not about grand gestures or speeches. It's about showing up, about doing the work, about putting the people she loves above her own ego. Even her conflicts with the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, often painted as power hunger, were part of her plan. When the Brotherhood wanted to use Ciri as a weapon to drain her powers for their own gain, Yennefer pretended to align with them. She attended their meetings, smiled their smiles, played their games, all while gathering information, planting seeds of doubt in their ranks, and secretly sabotaging their plans. When the Brotherhood finally tried to capture Ciri, Yennefer turned on them, using their own magic against them, exposing their treachery to the world. She didn't just save Ciri. She destroyed the Brotherhood's hold on the continent, freeing sorcerers from their tyrannical rule and paving the way for a better future. So let's reimagine the Witcher saga, this time through Yennefer's eyes. It's a story of a woman who overcame a childhood of abuse, who clawed her way to power not for herself, but for the people she loved. It's a story of a sorceress who used her wit and magic to outmaneuver empires, to reshape destiny, to protect the ones no one else would. It's a story of a mother, a lover, a fighter whose legacy isn't in statues or songs, but in the lives she saved, the hearts she changed, the world she made better. You've watched the show, played the games, read the books, but now you see the truth. Yennefer of Vengerberg isn't just a supporting character. She's the invisible architect of the Witcher's epic, and her legacy, quiet, powerful, unacknowledged, will outlive empires, outshine destiny, and forever change the way we see the saga. The next time you follow Geralt's journey, keep an eye on Yennefer. You'll see her everywhere, in Ciri's courage, in Geralt's compassion, in the hope that refuses to die. She's the one pulling the strings, and she's the reason the story matters. Geralt of Rivia began his journey as a man of stone, a witcher, trained to be neutral, to take coin, kill monsters, and move on. Emotions were a liability, attachments, a death sentence, and neutrality, his sacred code, one he clung to like a shield against the cruelty of the world. Then Yennefer of Vengerberg walked into his life, and that shield began to crack. Their story is often framed as a romance, but to reduce it to that is to miss the point. Yennefer wasn't just Geralt's lover. She was his mirror, forcing him to confront the parts of himself he'd buried, to trade his lone wolf habits for something softer, something braver, something human. She didn't change him. She unlocked him, and in doing so, turned a stoic witcher into a man who could love, who could commit, who could finally call something home. Let's start with the lie Geralt told himself for years, that neutrality was strength. He'd repeat it like a mantra, even as villages burned, as innocents died, as Nilfgaard's army marched across the continent. I kill monsters, not humans, he'd say, ignoring the fact that sometimes the monsters wore crowns and the victims wore rags. Yennefer saw through this. She called it what it was, cowardice. Take the incident in Posada, for example, when a group of Nilfgaardian soldiers rounded up elven refugees, planning to execute them for stealing human grain. Geralt was there, hired to kill a Kikimora in the nearby woods, and he planned to walk away. Yennefer stopped him, her voice like ice. You call this neutrality? She snapped, nodding at the elves huddled in the dirt. You call letting men murder children doing your job. Neutrality isn't strength, Geralt. It's an excuse. An excuse to not care, to not choose, to not be human. Geralt hesitated, his hand on his sword hilt. For a second, he wanted to argue, to hide behind his code. But Yennefer's eyes didn't waver. So he drew his sword, not for coin, not for a contract, but for the elves. He fought the soldiers. He saved the refugees. And when it was over, Yennefer looked at him and said, "There's the man I know you are." That day, Geralt's code didn't break. It evolved. Neutrality gave way to purpose, and purpose gave way to something deeper, a commitment to protect, even when it cost him. Yennefer didn't force this on him. She just made him see that he'd been capable of it all along. Then there's the found family. No one saw coming. Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri. At first, Geralt saw Ciri as a debt, a law of surprise. He couldn't escape, a child he had to protect out of obligation. Yennefer saw her as a chance to heal the wounds of her own childhood, a chance to love something unconditionally, a chance to build a family. It was Yennefer who turned that obligation into love. Remember their first winter at Kaer Morhen? Geralt focused on training Ciri swordplay, survival skills, the hard lessons of a witcher. Yennefer focused on her. She taught her to control her magic, yes, but she also sat with her when she cried about her mother. She listened when she talked about her fears of being a monster. She even baked her honey cakes badly at first. Geralt teased her about burning them, but Ciri ate them anyway. One night, Geralt found Ciri curled up next to Yennefer by the fire, listening to stories about Yennefer's time at Aretuza. "She's not just teaching me magic," Ciri said, when she noticed Geralt watching. She's teaching me how to be brave. Geralt didn't say anything, but he saw it then. Yennefer wasn't just helping with Ciri. She was binding them together. She turned a witcher and a princess into a father and a daughter. She turned three lonely people into a family. And Geralt? He learned to say, I love you, not with words, but with small acts, fixing Ciri's sword, making Yennefer her favorite tea, sitting with them by the fire instead of brooding alone. That's the magic of Yennefer's role in their family. She didn't just create it, she made Geralt believe he deserved it. Perhaps her greatest gift to Geralt, though, was challenging his stoicism, breaking the lone wolf habits he'd built over decades. Geralt was a man who healed his own wounds, who made decisions alone, who never asked for help. Yennefer refused to let him. Take the time he was injured by a striga, his leg broken, his ribs cracked, his pride in tatters. He tried to stumble back to his horse, to ride alone to Kaer Morhen, but Yennefer stopped him. You're not going anywhere, she said, her tone soft but firm. You're hurt. Let me help you, Geralt growled. I don't need your help. I know, she said, but you're going to let me give it anyway. She healed his leg with magic, helped him onto her horse, and rode with him to safety. Along the way, she didn't tease him or mock his pride. She just said, It's okay to be weak, Geralt. It's okay to let someone take care of you. That was a revelation for him. For years, he'd equated strength with solitude. Yennefer taught him strength was in vulnerability, in letting someone see you broken, in trusting them to help you fix it. Another example, when they were planning to rescue Ciri from the Wild Hunt, Geralt wanted to go alone. I'm a witcher, he said. I work better alone, Yennefer laughed, sharp and warm. You work alone, yes, but you'll fail alone. We're stronger together. You, me, Ciri, even Dandelion, annoying as he is. Geralt hesitated, then nodded. For the first time, he didn't just accept help. He asked for it. He let Yennefer plan, let Ciri use her powers, let their friends fight by their side. And they won. Not because Geralt was alone, but because he wasn't. In the end, Yennefer didn't just change Geralt's life. She changed his identity. He went from a witcher who hid from his emotions to a man who embraced them. From a loner who feared attachment to a father and a lover who cherished it. From a man who followed a code to a man who wrote his own. One built on love, on family, on choosing what's right instead of what's easy. Geralt often says that destiny brought him to Yennefer, but that's not quite right. Destiny brought them together, but Yennefer brought Geralt to himself. She was the catalyst for his evolution, the spark that turned stone into flesh, the reason he finally stopped running and started living. And in the end, that's the greatest love story of all. Not just two people loving each other, but two people helping each other become the best versions of themselves. Ciri of Cintra is often called the Child of Destiny, a title that frames her life as a path preordained, a force bigger than herself. But destiny is a blank page until someone picks up the pen. For Ciri, that someone was Yennefer of Vengerberg. Geralt gave her a sword and a code, the Dryads gave her shelter, but Yennefer gave her something no one else could, control over her own power, stability in a world of chaos, and a love that would make her fight to survive. Yennefer didn't just guide Ciri's journey, she shaped it, turning a scared, orphaned princess into a woman who could outrun the Wild Hunt, outmatch sorcerers, and choose her own fate. To understand Ciri, you first have to understand the woman who taught her to be unbreakable. Let's start with the magic. The raw, wild energy that Ciri inherited, the kind that threatened to consume her if no one showed her how to wield it. When they first met, Ciri's powers were a storm. She'd teleport in her sleep, shatter windows when she was angry, and wake up screaming from visions of the Wild Hunt. Geralt wanted to hide her from it, to protect her by burying her gifts. Yennefer wanted to teach her to master them. Their first training session at Kaer Morhen was a disaster. Ciri tried to force a fireball, her hands shaking, and instead set a tapestry ablaze. She collapsed to the floor, tears streaming down her face. I'm a monster, she whispered. Yennefer knelt beside her, not with scolding, but with a hand on her shoulder. You're not a monster, she said, her voice soft but steady. You're a sorceress. And sorcery isn't about force, it's about choice. You don't fight the storm, you dance with it. Over the winter, Yennefer taught her that to breathe through the panic, to focus on the why, behind the magic, protecting a friend, escaping danger instead of the fear. She showed Ciri how to channel her teleportation into a tool, not a reflex. How to read the currents of chaos magic instead of being swept away by them. How to say no to the voices in her head that told her she was dangerous. By spring, Ciri could conjure a shield of ice to stop a falling beam, could teleport across the courtyard without tripping, could look in the mirror and not see a monster. That's the gift Yennefer gave her, not just skill, but confidence. She turned Ciri's greatest fear into her greatest strength. But magic was just the start. Ciri's real vulnerability wasn't her powers. It was the hole in her heart, the loss of her mother, her grandmother, her home. She'd spent months running, hiding, never staying in one place long enough to feel safe. Yennefer changed that. She became the stability Ciri craved, the maternal figure she'd never had. Take the nights Ciri woke up screaming from nightmares of Nilfgaard sacking Sintra. Geralt would sit by her door, listening, too afraid to intrude. Yennefer would climb into bed with her, wrap her in a blanket, and tell her stories. Not of battles or sorcery, but of her own childhood, of the farm where she grew up, of the first time she cast a spell, she'd turned her stepfather's boots into mud, of how scared she'd been when she left for Aretuza. "You're not alone in this," Yennefer would say, brushing Ciri's hair back from her face. "Grief is just love with nowhere to go. And you have so much love to give, don't let the dark take that from you." Those nights weren't about fixing Ciri's pain. They were about letting her feel it, without shame, without fear. Yennefer taught her that being vulnerable wasn't weakness, that it was okay to miss her family, okay to be scared, okay to want to be held. She gave Ciri a home, not in the castle or a keep, but in the quiet, steady love of someone who saw her. Not as the child of destiny, but as a girl who just needed to be loved. And when the world came for Ciri, Yennefer became her shield, willing to burn everything down to keep her safe. The most brutal example? The day the Brotherhood of Sorcerers sent assassins to capture Ciri, planning to drain her powers to fuel their own ambitions. Yennefer was with Ciri in a forest cabin, making bread badly. Ciri laughed at how lumpy the dough was when the assassins arrived. Yennefer didn't hesitate. She pushed Ciri into a hidden cellar, kissed her forehead, and said, "Stay here. Don't come out until I call your name." Then she walked outside, her hands glowing with chaos magic, and faced 3 trained sorcerers alone. She broke their wands, shattered their shields, and when one of them tried to cast a killing curse at the cellar door, she took the head herself, her shoulder burning, her vision blurring. But she didn't fall. She fought until the assassins fled, then crawled back to the cellar, blood dripping from her arm, and smiled when she saw Ciri safe. "Told you I'd come back," she said. That's the lengths Yennefer went to. She didn't just protect Ciri. She put her own life on the line, over and over again. When the Wild Hunt tracked Ciri to Novigrad, Yennefer used a forbidden spell to mask Ciri's magic, even though it left her bedridden for weeks. When Nilfgaard offered her a crown to betray Ciri, she laughed in their ambassador's face. When Ciri finally decided to face the Wild Hunt alone, Yennefer didn't let her. She stood beside her, magic crackling, and said, "We fight together. Always." These sacrifices didn't just keep Ciri alive. They shaped her narrative. They taught her that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice, a fight, a promise. They gave her the courage to stand up to the Wild Hunt, to reject Nilfgaard's offer of power, to choose a life of freedom instead of a destiny forced upon her. When Ciri finally defeated Eredin, when she stood victorious in the snow, she didn't just think of Geralt. She thought of Yennefer, of the woman who taught her to dance with the storm, who'd held her when she cried, who'd fought for her when no one else would. Ciri's destiny wasn't written in the stars. It was written in Yennefer's hands, the hands that taught her magic, the hands that wiped her tears, the hands that defended her from the dark. Yennefer didn't just shape Ciri's life, she shaped her soul. And in the end, that's the greatest legacy anyone can leave, to make someone believe they're strong enough to face the world alone, but never forgotten.